What if I told you, the most powerful nation on earth didn't lose its power in a war, didn't surrender after an invasion, but slowly signed it away? Not with weapons, with debt. Today, the United States owes tens of trillions of dollars, and one of the largest holders of that debt is its biggest rival, China. Let that sink in. America isn't just competing with China. America is being financed by China. No bombs, no battles, just bonds. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is modern economic warfare, and it changed the balance of global power forever. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't talk about. Empires don't usually collapse from outside attacks. They collapse from inside decisions, and America made one of those decisions quietly, year after year. It spent more than it earned. It cut taxes while increasing military budgets. It launched foreign wars while expanding domestic programs. Instead of slowing down, it borrowed every year. Washington issued massive amounts of government debt, basically saying, "Lend us money today, we'll pay you back tomorrow." The world lined up, but China stepped forward. At the same time, China was transforming itself. Factories multiplied, exports exploded. American stores filled with Chinese-made products, phones, clothes, electronics, furniture. Every purchase sent dollars flowing east. Soon, China was sitting on mountains of U.S. currency, trillions. Now imagine holding that much foreign cash. You don't hide it under a mattress, you invest it. And China chose the safest investment on earth: American government bonds. One purchase at a time. China became America's banker. But here's what most people completely miss. This wasn't just financial. It was strategic. Every bond China bought helped America avoid tough choices. Every loan allowed Washington to delay spending cuts. Every dollar kept the American lifestyle running on borrowed time. China wasn't simply lending money. It was locking America into dependency. A silent partnership formed. America consumed. China produced. America borrowed. China funded. On the surface, it looked balanced. Behind the scenes, it wasn't. Because while America was building debt, China was building factories, ports, technology, and influence. One side was living for today. The other was planning for decades. And this is where the story becomes dangerous. When someone finances your lifestyle, they don't need to threaten you. They just wait. They gain leverage. They gain options. They gain patience. America believed debt was temporary. China understood debt as power. That was the moment the game changed. Not in a battlefield, not in a summit meeting, but inside spreadsheets, bond markets, and quiet financial agreements. And most people never even notice. Most people think power comes from armies, from missiles, from aircraft carriers. But in today's world, real power comes from something quieter: money, trade, and infrastructure. And this is where China played its smartest move. China never planned to defeat the United States in a war. It planned to outbuild it. While America focused on elections, foreign conflicts, and short-term growth, China focused on decades. Every dollar China earned from exports, every bond it bought from Washington, was reinvested into something permanent: ports, railways, power plants, industrial zones, across Asia, across Africa, across Europe. China wasn't just lending money anymore. It was building the physical backbone of global trade. And once you control trade routes, you don't need tanks. Here's how it worked. Many developing countries desperately needed infrastructure, roads, electricity, harbors. Western lenders offered help, but with conditions, reforms, transparency, regulations. China offered something different: fast loans, simple contracts, almost no political questions, so countries accepted. But these loans weren't gifts. They were leverage. When repayments became impossible, China didn't send soldiers. It sent lawyers. Ports were leased for decades. Facilities changed management. Strategic locations quietly shifted control. This wasn't invasion. This was collateral. At the same time, America kept doing what it had always done. It borrowed. It consumed. It postponed hard decisions. China took that borrowed money and upgraded its economy. New factories, better technology, massive logistics networks. America spent, China built. That single difference changed everything. Because spending disappears, infrastructure stays. America believed globalization would turn everyone into America. China understood globalization meant access. Access to markets, access to resources, access to influence. While America exported lifestyle and entertainment, China exported concrete and steel. One creates customers, the other creates dependency. Slowly, global companies became tied to Chinese manufacturing. Shipping lanes flowed through Chinese-built ports. Entire economies became linked to Chinese financing. And without firing a shot, the world started leaning toward Beijing. Not because China forced it, because China funded it. Now here's the irony. America borrowed money from China. China used that money to expand worldwide. And that expansion quietly reduced America's dominance. It may be the most strategic financial loop in modern history. Music titans. By the time Washington realized what was happening, China was already embedded in the foundations of global commerce. You can't easily replace ports. You can't instantly move factories. You can't unplug supply chains. The system was built, and once built, it's almost impossible to reverse. Here's the part nobody likes to admit. The United States can't simply cut ties with China, not without hurting itself first, badly, because this relationship isn't just about debt anymore, it's about dependence. On paper, America looks powerful. It controls the world's reserve currency. It has massive military reach. It dominates global finance. But behind the scenes, the system is fragile. America runs on borrowing. Every year, Washington spends more than it collects in taxes. That gap is filled by selling debt. And for decades, China has been one of the biggest buyers. Now imagine what happens if China suddenly stops. Interest rates jump. Markets panic. The dollar weakens. Government borrowing becomes more expensive. Everything from housing to food prices feels the shock. So America is trapped and needs China to keep buying its debt. But here's the deeper problem. Even if America wanted to bring manufacturing back, even if it wanted to rebuild supply chains, it can't do it overnight. Entire industries were outsourced. Factories were shut down. Skilled labor disappeared. Supply networks moved overseas. You don't reverse 30 years of globalization in a few elections. It would take decades and massive economic pain. This is what economists call a golden cage. America still lives comfortably, but the walls are real. It depends on Chinese factories for consumer goods. It depends on Chinese financing for affordable borrowing. It depends on global supply chains built through Chinese infrastructure. Breaking free means higher prices, lower growth, political backlash. No president wants that, so the system continues, and China understands this perfectly. China doesn't need to crash America. It doesn't need to dump bonds dramatically. It just needs to stay patient. Every year America rolls over its debt. Every year China gains more experience, technology, and influence. One side struggles to maintain its lifestyle. The other steadily climbs the value chain. This is why trade wars didn't solve the problem. Tariffs didn't fix it. Political speeches didn't fix it. Because the issue isn't policy, it's structure. America built an economy based on consumption and finance. China built one based on production and long-term planning. Those paths lead to very different futures. Here's the uncomfortable truth. America trained China to become a competitor. By outsourcing manufacturing, by opening markets, by sending capital overseas, by borrowing instead of rebuilding. What started as cheap labor turned into industrial power. What started as trade turned into leverage. And now, for the first time in modern history, a rising power doesn't need to challenge the existing superpower militarily. It just needs to wait, because debt compounds, infrastructure compounds, influence compounds, and patience beats panic. So where does all this lead? What happens when a nation built on consumption faces a rival built on production? What happens when debt meets patience? This is the moment the story turns from history to destiny. The United States still has enormous strengths, world-class universities, powerful companies, advanced technology, a culture of innovation, but it also carries something heavy: decades of accumulated debt, hollowed-out manufacturing, and political divisions that make long-term planning almost impossible. Meanwhile, China is moving differently. It is pouring money into artificial intelligence, into robotics, into electric vehicles, into semiconductors, into space technology. China isn't trying to copy America anymore. It's trying to replace key parts of the global system: payment networks, supply chains, trade routes, technology standards. This is not about becoming rich. This is about becoming unavoidable. Here are the three futures the world is quietly drifting toward. Scenario 1. America reinvents itself in this version. The US does something difficult. It rebuilds manufacturing. It invests heavily in education and infrastructure. It accepts short-term pain for long-term strength. Consumption slows, production rises, debt stops growing. This path is possible, but it requires unity, discipline, and patience. Three things modern politics struggles to deliver. Scenario 2. China becomes the economic center in this future. America keeps borrowing. China keeps building. More countries align with Beijing for trade and financing. The dollar slowly loses influence. Global supply chains revolve around Chinese infrastructure. Not overnight, gradually, quietly. Power shifts without a single dramatic collapse. This is the path we are currently walking. Scenario 3. A fragmented world. This is the most dangerous outcome. Rival economic blocs. Separate technologies. Separate currencies. Separate alliances. Trade becomes weaponized. Innovation slows. Tensions rise. The global economy becomes unstable. History tells us these periods rarely end peacefully. And here's the hardest truth of all. There are no clean victories in this story. If America falls, the world feels it. If China dominates, the world changes. If both struggle, everyone pays. This isn't a movie with heroes and villains. It's a system-level shift. Because remember, China didn't steal America's future. America financed China's rise, one bond at a time, one factory at a time, one delayed decision at a time. Empires don't collapse in explosions. They fade through habits, through comfort, through borrowing tomorrow to enjoy today. And rising powers don't announce themselves. They build quietly while others argue loudly.